Hello everyone. On the eve of New Year's and Christmas, this appears for sale in all of the supermarkets. The Kinder Chocolate Santa Claus. Every child absolutely loves it. Besides the small figure, Kinder also produces medium and even large versions. But today, we will be making a record-breaking version of the Chocolate Santa Claus, making it 1.5 meters tall. First, we need to examine it, so let's remove the wrapper. Inside, we see a very detailed chocolate figure. The outer layer is milk chocolate. Let's take a look inside. Inside, we see a layer of white chocolate. Let's give it a taste. Simply amazing. A mega milky flavor. You can tell Kinder Chocolate has something special about it. To make our chocolate special too, I ordered these crates by mail from South Africa. Inside are cocoa fruits. Making chocolate without this fruit is simply impossible. So let's take all the cocoa pods out of the crate. We've got a lot of them. A total of 38 pieces. In my country, this is an exotic product, so including delivery, the cocoa fruits cost a whopping $900. These cocoa pods took 6 months to ripen. Today, we will use them to make our own craft chocolate. So let's take the first fruit and using a knife, cut through the shell in a circle. The shell is really thick. We're going to separate the halves by hand. Inside, it looks even more interesting. Beneath the thick shell is the inner part of the cocoa fruit, consisting of cocoa beans and pulp. And these are exactly what we will be using to make the chocolate. So let's take out one of the bits. At first glance, it looks like a white lump of pulp, but it's not that simple. Let's cut it in half. Inside, there's a seed called a cocoa bean. In its raw form, it has an unusual purple color, while the outer part is edible white pulp. Let's give it a taste. I expected some sort of a chocolate flavor, but it actually tastes more like a tropical fruit with a balanced sweet and sour flavor. Now, to turn cocoa fruits into chocolate, a lot of steps are required. First, we're going to remove the pulp and separate it into segments. And then we're going to drop them into a pot. Each fruit contains about 50 cocoa beans, so let's keep separating them. Now to speed things up, we're going to work in a pair. One person peels the shell and the other separates the pulp. This makes the process much faster. After an hour and a half, we filled the bowl with a heaping pile of separated cocoa fruit segments. The first step to making chocolate is fermentation, but it requires tropical conditions. So to maintain the proper temperature, we're going to place the pot into the oven and set it to 40 degrees Celsius. The second requirement is high humidity, so we're going to put a humidifier inside the oven and fill it with water. And then cover it with a dome. And that's it. Time to turn it on. Now the water turns into mist, exactly what we need. Fermentation is a long process, so I'll be adding fresh water from time to time. Now we're going to close the oven and wait a full 9 days. While the beans are fermenting, we're going to work on the mold. It's very complex and detailed, so of course it's impossible to buy the size we need online. So we're going to make it ourselves. We're going to start by creating a 3D model. Using a special app, we need to photograph the original figurine from all angles. With a large number of photos, we can generate a 3D model. The result looks pretty good. Of course, it's not perfect and can't be used directly to make the mold, so let's improve it on the computer. I transferred the 3D model from my phone to the computer, refined it from all angles until it was perfect, and then split it into 2 halves, since the original Kinder Santa Claus is made of 2 joined parts. The finished model goes on a flash drive, and we're going to take it with us. Now it's time to get in the car and head to our first destination where we're going to get help with mold making. This is a large woodworking workshop. Before making the mold, we need to create a matrix, and here's how much material we're going to need. Huge sheets of MDF are placed on the table and then cut into the necessary pieces using a circular saw. We're going to need a lot of segments. Next, we need PVA glue. Using a roller, we're going to spread it across the entire surface. We placed one glued piece on top of another. We're going to continue applying glue to the sheets and stack them evenly on top of each other in the press. Finally, it's time to start the press. This applies intense pressure, tightly compressing all the MDF layers together. Additionally, the surface of the press heats up, making the glue more fluid and allowing it to seep into every micro crack and dry quickly due to the heat. We're going to leave it to dry for about 5 hours. Once the time is up, we're going to release the press, and the tightly bonded MDF block is ready to be removed. We're going to take it to the circular saw to ensure the edges are perfectly straight. Using this approach, we produced all the necessary parts in just 2 days. The total cost for labor and materials was $900. Now let's load everything into the car. And then we're going to head to the second location. This is a home woodworking workshop equipped with the CNC milling machine that we need. We're going to place one of the previously glued MDF blocks onto the table and secure it firmly on all sides. Now it's time to use our flash drive with a 3D model. The CNC operator splits our model into even smaller segments to ensure everything runs smoothly and starts the CNC machine. First, the roughing mill comes into action. Its job is to remove most of the excess material. A lot of wood shavings quickly pile up on the table, so we're going to have to clear them away from time to time. After 7 hours, the roughing process is complete. As you can see, the edges are very rough. Now it's time to switch to the finishing mill, which is more precise. With its fine tip, it makes the surface nearly perfect. However, this process takes a lot of time. In total, machining all the parts with this technology took 6 full days. Next, we refine the finished parts using a drill attachment, which follows all of the complex contours. Then we're going to do the final sanding with a fine grit sandpaper. And then finally, coat the largest piece with a thick layer of PVA glue. Now we're going to place the second part on top. And then slide it around a bit to spread the glue evenly. And using a large number of screws, we're going to secure the parts of the matrix together. Then we're going to clamp the head with C-clamps for extra pressure. Next, we apply glue to this part of the mold as well. And then attach the final wooden segment to the Santa Claus figure. To ensure the thin edges fit tightly, we're going to secure them with a pneumatic nailer. Larger, more massive parts are fastened with large screws. Then we fill the countersink holes where the screws were driven in with glue and insert wooden plugs. The excess glue is wiped off, and in the end, we're going to sand the surface with an angle grinder. Now our matrix has a perfect surface. We also created the matrix for the back half of the Santa Claus. Just look at how beautiful this turned out. The chocolate version should come out just as perfect. We're going to blow off any remaining wood shavings from the surface, and the matrix is fully ready. For this work, we paid $1,100. For transportation, we're going to carefully wrap the wooden Santa Claus in stretch film, and then load it into the car. Finally, we head to the last destination where the chocolate molds will be produced. We're going to unload the matrix. And by the way, each one weighs over 100 kilograms. Right away, we place it on a vacuum thermoforming table, the only machine in the entire city large enough to do the job. First, we're going to drill small through holes in the deepest, most detailed areas using a thin drill bit. Due to the table's vacuum specifics, air needs to be sucked out through these holes. And now the first stage begins. The matrix is lowered and a thermal panel moved into place above it. The thermal panel uses infrared radiation to heat the matrix. This is crucial to prevent the plastic, which will be used for the mold, from cooling too quickly on contact with the matrix. It also ensures the mold captures every detail perfectly. Now the matrix is heated, and we place a plastic sheet onto the vacuum table. The sheet is secured on all sides and heated by the same thermal panel. After 3 minutes, the plastic becomes soft. A special carriage presses the matrix into the soft plastic, and the vacuum table sucks out all the air. Next, the cooling system turns on to solidify the plastic in the correct shape. Now we can lift the clamp and remove the mold from the machine. The result is a perfect plastic mold with a smooth inner surface. But this was the back part, which is relatively simple. We remove the matrix and now prepare to make the more detailed front part. We're going to place another plastic sheet, and once it's heated, form it also. It is so satisfying to watch this process. The second mold is ready also. This one turned out as perfectly as the first one. The only issue is the excess frame around it, so we're going to trim that with a jigsaw. At last, the plastic molds are truly perfect and ready to go. The total cost for the plastic and labor was $360. Now it's time to return to the studio. Just think about it. Making these molds cost a total of $2,360 and took a full 9 days. Now let's get back to our cocoa beans. We're going to transfer them into a basin. As you can see, the fermentation process was successful. The outer shell has turned into a chocolatey color, and simply put, the pulp on the outside has rotted, releasing heat and acid. This process removed the unwanted bitterness and astringency from the cocoa beans. However, it still doesn't smell like chocolate, only faint distant notes. The next step is drying. For this, a simple dehydrator will do the job. We're going to spread the fermented cocoa beans on the trays. And then add the additional layers and continue. Done. We set the temperature to 60 degrees Celsius and turn on the dehydrator. The cocoa beans will dry for a full 24 hours. Now, to speed up the process, we're also going to use the oven. So we're going to spread more cocoa beans onto baking trays. And we make sure to load the oven to full capacity. We're going to set it to convection mode at 60 degrees Celsius as well. And now we just have to wait. After 24 hours, we're going to take the trays out of the oven. And the cocoa beans in the dehydrator have also fully dried, so we're going to turn it off. The beans are now ultra dry and have shrunk in size. They've also become very hard. Just look at the difference. The dried cocoa bean is much smaller than the fermented one. Both the oven and the dehydrator produce the same result. And so we pour all the dried cocoa beans into a bowl. We've already collected a decent amount, but half the cocoa beans are still unprocessed, so we're going to load another batch. In the end, we have an almost full bowl of dried cocoa beans. The next step is roasting. This is when the true chocolate aroma should appear. So let's head outside. We're going to roast the beans in a cauldron, and for this we need firewood. We're going to place dry fuel and wood chips into the stove. And light the fire. We're going to wait for the fire to burn well. Then we're going to pour all the cocoa beans into the cauldron. They need to be stirred constantly to ensure even roasting. Right now, the remaining moisture inside the beans should be evaporating. The key indicator that the cocoa beans are roasting is the shell. If it peels off easily, they're ready to go. Plus, a strong chocolate aroma appears. Now it's time to pour the cocoa beans back into the bowl. Let's go back into the studio. The next crucial step is separating the husk from the cocoa bean. It's not edible. We will use only the core, breaking it into small pieces. This process is quite simple. But we have thousands of beans, and each one must be manually separated and crushed. In total, this took a full 5 hours. We wore our fingers raw, but we got high-quality cocoa nibs. However, cocoa nibs are not the only ingredient for making milk chocolate. We also bought a sack of powdered milk, soy lecithin, powdered sugar, vanilla pods, and the most expensive item, cocoa butter. We spent $420 on all of this. Now, to make chocolate, a melanger is required. Essentially, it is a mill with a stone bottom where these heavy stone rollers will rotate. We're going to place them inside and secure them with a valve. Now let's start by preparing the cocoa butter. This is a natural fat extracted from the cocoa beans. It came to us in large chunks like these. We're going to break it into smaller pieces. Then we're going to transfer them into a bowl. For one batch, we need 830 grams. The cocoa butter needs to be heated. The easiest way to do this is the microwave. Done. The cocoa butter is now liquid, so we're going to pour this into the melanger. Next, the cocoa nibs. Let's measure the required amount. $380 grams. We're going to turn on the melanger and gradually pour in the cocoa nibs. The stone rollers begin grinding them into a finer texture. And after about 20 minutes, they're going to start blending with the cocoa butter. At this stage, it's important to warm the mixture using a heat gun. Without this, the next ingredients could rapidly cool the cocoa butter, causing it to solidify. Powdered sugar. We're going to need a full kilogram, and we're going to gradually add it into the melanger. The mixture is already starting to resemble chocolate. To make it milk chocolate, we're going to need powdered milk. It also must be measured to ensure the correct proportion. 800 grams, and we're going to slowly pour it into the melanger. Next, vanilla pods. We're going to take them out of the packaging, and while we could use vanilla flavoring, we want to make incredibly delicious, aromatic, and natural homemade chocolate. That's why we're using real vanilla, and it smells simply amazing. Typically for desserts, each pod is sliced lengthwise to extract the fragrant seeds inside, but for chocolate, the melanger will grind everything anyways. So we're going to chop the pod, including its aromatic outer shell, and add half a vanilla pod directly into the melanger. One final ingredient, soy lecithin, used as an emulsifier. This helps all the ingredients blend together more smoothly. We only need 12 grams. It's a natural additive and completely safe. Now we're going to leave the melanger running for a full 10 hours. During this time, all the ingredients will grind down and combine at a molecular level. In the end, we will get natural milk chocolate. We're going to turn off the melanger and then pour the chocolate into a gastronome container. The first batch of chocolate is ready. Now we need to keep it from solidifying while we prepare the next batches. A bain-marie will help us do that. We're going to fill the bain-marie with water. Then place 2 more Gastronorm containers inside. Let's power up the bain-marie. Start it and set the steam bath mode. Now steam will rise from below, continuously keeping our chocolate warm. We're going to pour the next batch of chocolate directly into the Gastronorm container in the steam bath. And so we're going to continue making milk chocolate. Over 4 days, we produced chocolate. And we ended up with 3 nearly full Gastronorm containers. However, we can't pour it into molds just yet. It needs to be tempered. To temper it, we're going to heat the chocolate to 50 degrees Celsius. Now, let me show you why tempering is necessary. We're going to make 1 chocolate bar using untempered chocolate. We're going to spread it out and then remove any excess. For the second chocolate bar, we're going to temper the chocolate on a granite board. So we're going to pour a ladle full of milk chocolate onto it. And then using a spatula, we're going to spread it evenly across the surface. This allows the chocolate to cool quickly and uniformly. After 20 seconds, you can see it becoming thicker. Now it's time to check the temperature. Once it reaches 27 degrees Celsius, we're going to quickly scrape the chocolate off the granite board. Now we need to warm it up slightly using the microwave. The goal is to reach 32 degrees Celsius. Perfect. By cooling and reheating the chocolate to these precise temperatures, we have altered the cocoa butter's structure. Now we can pour the second chocolate bar using proper tempered milk chocolate. We're going to let it solidify and then remove it from the mold. Now let's compare. The untempered chocolate is dull and melts quickly in your hands, and it doesn't even crunch when it's broken. Basically, it's a fail. The tempered chocolate is shiny, it doesn't melt from the warmth of your hands, and has the perfect snap when broken. So tempering is absolutely essential, but the challenge is that all the chocolate must be tempered simultaneously. For such a large volume, we would need a massive piece of granite, and so of course we ordered one. Here it is, a granite slab 3 meters long. This size is definitely enough for our chocolate needs, and it cost $400 excluding delivery. But since the order was urgent, only unpolished granite was available, so we're going to polish it ourselves using the angle grinder with a diamond disc. Carefully, we're going to go over the surface until smooth. And after 2 hours, we have a perfectly smooth surface. Now the next task is to move it into the studio because it weighs a full 200 kilograms. After the dusty polishing process, it must be washed thoroughly with a cleaning solution. This time we'll need much larger spatulas. We're going to take the milk chocolate out of the bain-marie and pour it onto the granite slab. We're going to do the same thing with the remaining batches. Now, using the spatulas, we're going to spread the chocolate evenly across the entire surface. In just a minute, it starts to thicken. Once it reaches the correct temperature, we're going to return it to the Gastronorm container. Now we just need to reheat it slightly in the bain-marie. While the chocolate is warming up, let's prepare the molds. After production, they also need to be washed. To ensure the chocolate releases easily, we're going to degrease the molds with alcohol. The chocolate is now at 32 degrees, and it's time to start pouring. The easiest way is to use a measuring cup. We always begin pouring from the edges, covering the sides first. This is important because chocolate contracts as it cools, and we need to prevent the edges from folding inward. Anything that drips to the bottom, we're going to spread with a brush to coat the mold surface evenly. Once we pour the first layer, we're going to let it cool. Finished. Once it sets, we're going to continue pouring until we use up all the chocolate. Now, all the chocolate has been poured into these molds. But as you may recall, the original Kinder Santa has a layer of white chocolate inside, so I bought more cocoa butter, vanilla pods, and powdered sugar. This was an additional $260. White chocolate is made exactly the same way as milk chocolate, just without cocoa nibs. So we're going to use the cocoa butter, warmed with a heat gun, powdered sugar, powdered milk, vanilla, and soy lecithin. And we're going to leave the melanger running for 5 hours. Now the white chocolate is ready, so we're going to pour it into the Gastronorm container. By the way, it turns out much thinner than milk chocolate. But let's continue. We made 2 full Gastronorm containers of white chocolate, and after heating it to 50 degrees, we poured it onto the large granite slab. Next, we spread it evenly using the spatulas. And once the white chocolate cooled to the correct temperature, we returned it to the Gastronorm containers. And then warmed it slightly again. And that's it. The proper temperature has been reached. We can finally proceed with the final pouring of the white chocolate. White chocolate has also solidified, and now our molds have become incredibly heavy. To remove the chocolate, we cut off the protruding rim. It has already served its purpose. Did the same with the second mold. And now, the moment of truth. We place a sheet of chipboard over the mold to support the chocolate and then flip it over. Now it's time to release the figure. Okay, but it's not that simple. The chocolate refuses to come out. So let's try fixing this with some cold spray. The sudden temperature drop should help the chocolate detach from the mold. We emptied the entire can of spray and then tried again. Nope, it's still stuck. So we resorted to extreme measures and decided to cut the mold near the legs. That's where the main structural ridge is, preventing the chocolate from coming loose. Once we reached the chocolate, we continued carefully with a knife. Let's try it again. At last, it's coming out. Though not without some defects, we've got the back half of our chocolate Santa. Check out that beautiful shine from the tempered chocolate. Overall, I'm happy with this result. Now we're gonna flip over the front, more textured half of the chocolate Santa. We're gonna cut off the structural ridge just like before, and then lift the mold. Wow, that turned out absolutely perfect. Every detail is imprinted beautifully. Finally, after so many days of work, we're seeing the first result, and it's truly rewarding. It looks stunning. So the two giant halves of our Kinder-style chocolate Santa are ready, and they look very close to the original. But before we can join them together, we need to create that iconic packaging, because without it, Santa just wouldn't feel as festive. So to make the wrapper, we're going to need the plastic molds again, but first we're going to cover them with foil. The first layer is done, but to increase the foil's thickness, we're going to use double-sided tape. We're going to stick small squares of tape onto the first foil layer. Then we're going to peel off the protective layer and apply the second foil layer. In total, we're going to need 3 layers. So the base of the wrapper is ready. Now onto the cosmetic part. For this, we're going to need a lot of acrylic paint. So let's start with white. We're going to pour it onto the foil and spread it evenly with a roller. The entire surface of the wrapper needs to be fully painted. Now, using the original wrapper as a reference, we're going to carefully trace all of its details onto the foil with a pencil. Next, it's time for colorful paints. The most dominant color, of course, is red, so we're going to start with that. First, we're going to paint the large, solid color areas. Then, the hardest part, adding all the intricate details with shadow and outlines. This took a lot of time. The final step is coating our artwork with lacquer to make the wrapper shiny just like the original. Right now, the lacquer looks white, but it will become clear when it dries. And that's it. After 2 days of work, we have a stunning wrapper. Now we're going to remove the back part of the wrapper. Then we're going to carefully cover the chocolate Santa's back half with it. We're going to press it down from all sides to ensure the wrapper fits snugly into place. Next, we're going to flip the bottom half over and apply a layer of milk chocolate along the edge and place the top half on top. We're going to fill all the gaps with chocolate to ensure both halves stick together properly. And finally, we're going to cover the front half with the wrapper, sealing the foil edges together. And that's it! The giant Kinder-style chocolate Santa is almost ready. The only thing left is to fix any unpainted spots on the foil seam. There. Now it's perfect. So officially, we've created a Kinder Santa Claus scaled up by 1,000 times. In my opinion, it looks incredibly close to the original. This was the longest and most challenging project we've ever filmed. With all the preparations, it took us a full month to complete this video, and the final cost of our giant Kinder Santa was a whopping $4,340. That also makes this the most expensive video on our channel. It weighs 80 kilograms and stands 1.5 meters tall. But now, I really want to bring this to the kids and see their reaction, so we're going to cover it with cloth so they won't see it too soon. So we're going to load it into the car. And head over to meet the kids. It looks like they're surprised. Time to unpack the Santa. It seems that Santa broke apart during the ride. It's really a shame the kids didn't get to see him whole, but honestly, they don't seem too upset. They're already busy breaking the remaining pieces into smaller chunks. Then they start tasting our homemade chocolate. I tried it off camera, and it really does taste just like the original Kinder Milk chocolate. If this video gets over 200,000 likes, you can expect another project just as massive. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Happy New Year to everybody, and we'll see you next time.